brother is used. It says that he has testified falsely against his brother. The goy einay achiv, and the goy is not his brother. So we have either one of these verses, either verse 19 or verse 18. They both speak about the brother of the witness. Or alternatively, another way that we can learn, a third way that we can learn that a goy is disqualified biblically. Shelamedim psul goy, that we learn out the disqualification of the goy, bikal v'chomer, with this logic, migazlon v'isha, oy gazlon v'katan. Either by comparing the thief, a Jewish thief, and a woman, or the Jewish thief and the minor. Now, mind you that all those people are disqualified from being witnesses. If someone has been proven to be a thief, a Jew who is known, it's proven, there was proper testimony accepted against him, or whatever, and he's proven to be a thief, until he proves that he repented from that way of life, he has now, in the meantime, and what I'm about to say is actually an oxymoron, but I'm going to say it anyway. He is temporarily, permanently disqualified as a witness. Meaning to say, until he changes his status, which he can do, until then, though, he is permanently, if you will, disqualified from being a witness, biblically, because he's a thief. And therefore, if he's able to steal someone else's property, he surely is not afraid to lie about the truth. Okay? So you have him on the one hand. And then you have the woman, the most righteous woman, a trustworthy woman. She's a woman, and she's also disqualified biblically for whatever reason. Or, again, take the thief on the one hand, and the minor. He's very intelligent, he's very trustworthy, he's not yet bar mitzvah. He's disqualified biblically. Shatzad hashava shebohem sheina b'chol hamitzvos. Now, what do they have in common? That they don't keep all of the commandments. Hagazlon mipnei rishoy. So the thief, that's because he's wicked, because he by choice is breaking the law, breaking the Torah law. V'katan v'isha, and then what about the minor or the woman? Shaloi nitztavu. They're not commanded to keep all the commandments. So what they all have in common, if you take a look at what type of Jews does the Torah disqualify from being a witness, it's those Jews that for one reason or another are not keeping all the commandments. That all the commandments don't apply to them. The thief, that's by choice. That's a bad choice that he made, a poor choice that he made. He has disqualified himself. No, he's obligated to keep them all, but he's excluded himself. The woman and the minor, the Torah exempts them. They're not commanded to keep all the commandments. Okay? So that, af ani avi es hagoy. So too, logic says, I will bring into the equation the non-Jew, the guy. Meaning, he doesn't have to keep all the commandments. He has less commandments than the Jewish woman. So what we're trying to build up over here is a logical case to show how and why biblically the goy is not to be trusted, is not a kosher witness. Because we take a look at all the Jews that are not kosher witnesses, and what they all have in common is that they're not included in all the commandments. Ella, it's just shetakonas chachomim. It was established, though, by the rabbis. It is an establishment. B'mokim she'adu alonu she'edusam emes, where we know that their testimony of the goyim is true. Kegoyin, for example, the two examples that we gave. before. The witnesses that are signed on a legal document of the goyim. So in that case, where even though they're not accepted as witnesses biblically, but yet we know that in this case they're not going to lie, they're going to be good witnesses. So here, the rabbis accept their testimony even though biblically they're not accepted. Normally it goes the other way around. Normally, biblically, something is good or accepted or kosher or whatever, and the rabbis are being strict. In this case, the rabbis are taking it the other way. Biblically, goyim cannot be witnesses. But the rabbis said, we will make an allowance in the case where we know that they're going to be saying the truth. Or you can argue another point to explain why they're kosher, why they're acceptable to be witnesses in such a case, where they're signing a legal document, even for a Jew. And that is very simple. We have a rule in the Talmud. Dina de Malchusa, the law of the land, of the kingdom, of that time that you're living in, Dina, is Torah law. And there's a whole lot about that as well, to what that applies. But let's say that it applies in civil law or financial cases, so long as it doesn't contradict any Torah law. Let's take that. So as long as it doesn't go against the Torah law, and as long as it's basically a financial law, then Dina de Malchusa Dina, the law of the land of the country, is Torah law. So when one transgresses, not only are they breaking the law, but the Jew is actually breaking Torah law because the Torah says that the law of the land is law. Okay, so if the law of the land is law, so does that law accept the testimony of a goy? And the answer, of course it does. In a non-Jewish court of law, do they accept testimony by non-Jews? Well, surely. Okay, so there you go. So that's why it would be acceptable, because we know that in those cases they won't lie, because it would be perjury or whatever it would be, because of whatever the explanation is, the person knows that if he would testify falsely, he would be in very big trouble, to say the least. Therefore, the rabbi said, we're going to accept it because the Torah accepts it. In other words, Torah says that a goy is not to be accepted as a witness, but the Torah says Dina de Malchusa Dina, and therefore that overrides it. V'yesh omrim. And finally, the third opinion as to the status or why or we don't accept how we discredit or disqualify the goy. Opinion number 3. Some say Shagoyim einam psuli min haTorah, that the goyim are not disqualified biblically. Ela mishum shem gazlonim. The reason they're disqualified is not because they're goyim, not because of their status of being not a ben bris, because they're not part of the Jewish faith. But they're disqualified for the same reason some or many Jews are disqualified, because they're gazlonim, they're thieves. The gazlan pasul edus, and anybody who's a gazlan, a Jew who's a gazlan, who's a thief, is disqualified from being a witness. V'lochein, therefore, eile sheyeduim u'muchzakim sheinam shakranim, ksherim, those goyim that are known that they are honest, are proper kosher witnesses, even from a rabbinic standpoint. A goy that you know who is not a thief and wouldn't steal, okay, then he is the exception. Could be a high percentage, but we're still going to make the rule that goyim, people, are dishonest. And then each person has to show how he is an exception to that rule. And in certain times and in certain places, that may be a very high percentage, those that are the exception. But again, we're going to make a flat-out rule about the human race that people are basically dishonest to the extent that they will take someone else's property without permission. And if you really want to get into it, to try to show on a practical level how it's not as extreme as it sounds. You say, well, basically people are thieves. Come on. If let's say a person leaves their property out, in the open or something, so the fact that overnight it got stolen, that's because the one person took it. Mm-hmm. But you know how many people saw it and didn't take it? So why are you making the rule that the one thief, and it's not like, well, he was the first guy to take it, but, the next 10, no. So I think we can explain it as follows. When we're talking about being a thief, it doesn't necessarily mean to be a shoplifter or at gunpoint or by force. Even something which most people may not consider to be stealing, to use someone else's property without permission. Anything like that. Or to cut corners with the employer-employee relationship. If someone is getting paid to do a job from 9 to 5, and the person walks in at 9:01, and they didn't punch in, or they didn't report that I came late this day, or they didn't stay late till 5:01, whatever the case may be, that's a form of stealing. But there's a certain common sense or common decency or common understanding, whatever you want to say. It's common. What's common? That people steal. That's what became common. That's what's common. That people are, to a certain accepted degree, dishonest. So much so that you're going to make the argument and say, well, the employer knows that. Or it's like, certain businesses have built-in losses into their whole system because what do they know? In other words, you have, let's say, in the workplace, a place which has disposable cups for, styrofoam hot cups for tea or coffee or hot drink, okay? And they're there for the use of the employees. Now, one employee says, you know what? I am going to take one extra cup because I want to take it home. Is that not stealing? The cup is there for you to use during your coffee break or at any given time, whatever the policy is, while you're at work. So just like you can't walk off with a big box of 500 of those cups and take it home. That, I think, is fair to say most people understand that's stealing. I don't want to be caught doing that. But one cup? Well, what's the difference? You stealing 500 pennies or 1 penny? So I think it's fair to say that most people would steal 1 cup. There you have it. So most people are basically thieves. To bring it into practical terms. And many, many such examples. So I think when you look at it that way, it's easier to understand what we're saying over here is that most goyim are gazlonim. We're not necessarily painting it out to be that they're vicious and mean, but that they don't consider this to be a problem. And on the contrary, when you'll find those few individuals that are the exception, those people are whatever society will call them, either nerds or square or whatever you're going to call them. Why? Because they're so literate or they're so boxed into or they're... Okay, well, so there you have it. So that's for a Gazlan is not accepted as a witness, and therefore a Jew who does that is also not accepted as a witness. So it's a very serious issue. I'll tell you a quick little story that I heard from a rabbi who he was flown out of his town, to a different city to be the officiating rabbi at a Jewish wedding, at a chuppah. Okay, it was an observant couple. Everybody there was very observant. And they flew out this rabbi to officiate at the wedding. Basically, he's the one who's to oversee that everything's done properly. And what it really boils down to is, besides writing the document, the ksuba beforehand and so forth, under the chuppah, over a cup of wine, he says the blessing of the blessing over the wine, and he says the blessing prior to doing the mitzvah of marriage, right before the groom puts the ring on the bride's finger and makes the declaration that with this she becomes his wife. So he says the blessing. Okay. Now what you have to have, as we've been discussing, 2 kosher witnesses at that chuppah. They must observe and they have to see this groom put this ring on this bride's finger. They have to witness that in order for the ceremony, for the marriage to go into effect. One of the witnesses was someone who the rabbi felt was questionable as far as being a kosher witness. He didn't really feel that in business that person was upstanding enough or was honest enough in his business. See, unfortunately, it was a problem that some people are very religious or observant when it comes to certain areas, like the rituals which are between man and God. But when it comes between man and man, in civil laws or financial things, they tend to cut corners or to be not so open and honest in business. And that's a big problem. So, this rabbi felt that one of these witnesses was questionable, let's say, as to whether he's a proper witness. Now that could disqualify the whole marriage. So being that he was the officiating rabbi, he felt a responsibility. Now, right after, part of the Jewish ceremony of the chuppah is after the actual marriage, after the groom puts the ring on the bride's finger, they then read the ksubah, and then they take a second cup of wine, and there are 7 blessings, 7 benedictions which are made, all about the importance of marriage and the bond and Mashiach and the comparison to bride and groom. Okay, and it's an honor to get these these blessings. And the greatest honor, as far as blessings, is considered the last blessing, blessing number 7. It's a long blessing, and it's a very Mashiach, very messianic, intense blessing. Okay. The rabbi calls over one of these witnesses, and he says to him, look, they want to honor you with being a witness. Now, if you're not a kosher witness, you're going to really be disqualifying over here the whole situation. You have a tremendous responsibility. I, who am the officiating rabbi, I'm just going to be saying a blessing. That's what I'm doing over here. I'm taking a cup of wine and making a blessing. You're being the witness is going to actually make them married. And you sure you want to do that? So the guy thinks for a moment. He says, how about if I make the 7th blessing? Would that be available? In other words, he understood that it's the honor is not worth it. So, he wanted some honor, he wanted some recognition, he wanted something. He could say the blessings. The blessings could be said by any adult male Jew. That's not a big deal. The guy doesn't have to be a law-abiding citizen to make any one of those 7 blessings, but to be the witness you do. Okay, so the reason, according to this opinion, why we disqualify the goy is not biblical or rabbinic. It is biblical, but not because he's a guy. We're coming at it from a different angle. It's because he is a gazlan. He's a thief, as are most people, until proven otherwise. And therefore, the assumption is that they're liars. Because if you're not concerned and you're not worried with taking an extra cup from the dispenser home with you, or taking 1 box of facial tissues, or 1 roll of toilet paper home with you. No, it's there at work for the use of all of the employees, and as many as you need, that's fine. but you cannot walk off with a box or with a roll of toilet paper. Even though you're going to say, what are you talking about? They are loaded and in their storage. The janitor has loads and loads and loads. That's fine. You cannot walk away with one box or one roll. Therefore, if one does that, that person would be able to say a lie. It's not unfathomable for that person to lie. Or alternatively, along the same lines as everybody being considered to be a thief, shepsulam minatera, that the disqualification of the goy of being a witness is also biblical, like we're saying now. Mipnei, why? Because shestamam rishayim. Because the assumption is, until you know differently, until you prove differently, the stam goy is a rasha, is wicked, is considered to be a sinner. And again, we have the same logic called kal v'chomer from the bnei bris, the Jew. The Jew becomes disqualified by merely committing one sin that came to their hand. In other words, it's not that in order to be a kosher witness, the person has to never sin. It has to be, though, that the person does not willingly and knowingly and habitually commit any sin. Okay? It's if the person does if the Jew does certain sins because he has a desire, that's one thing. But if he is habitually transgressing something which he knows is a sin, so you can't say that it's inadvertent, you can't say it's unknowingly, so that person would indeed be disqualified. And it doesn't matter what the sin is, basically. So if that's the case and a Jew becomes disqualified, so certainly when we're dealing with Stam Goy, we can assume that, he's a transgressor. And the Torah does not need to disqualify them because it already disqualified the rasha, the wicked person. The Jew that's a rasha is disqualified from being a witness. Therefore, we don't have to have any particular disqualification of the guy. That's this third opinion. Within this third opinion, we have all sorts of different ways to get to the point. But they all have in common that it's not rabbinic, it is biblical, but it's not that the Torah disqualifies goy. It's disqualifying the rasha or the thief or whatever, and then we say Stam Goy is in that category. Ella, just rather, shebimakim sheyesh lismoich, in a situation where we can rely, she'oimrim emes, that they're saying the truth, anu donim al pi divreihem sheloi b'teiras edus. So then we are judging based on their words, based on their testimony, but not as a testimony. In other words, if this guy, who is still known to be a rasha, he's assumed to be a rasha, I should say, or he's assumed to be a thief, or he's assumed to be a liar, but if he tells us something that is an exception, that we have no reason to doubt that what he's saying is true, then we will accept his testimony, but not as testimony of a witness. Ella, so how are we accepting it? You see, in Jewish law, when it comes to certain things, there's a whole discussion as to what does the testimony and what are the witnesses accomplishing. Is it that we need testimony of two proper witnesses, or do we simply need to know the truth? For instance, if you need to know the truth, then take out of the equation the fact that with today's technology, you can dub and do anything, and it's really, really scary what you can, do with the technology of cameras or videos or what have you. But let's, for the moment, assume that if something is recorded, that is factual. All right, let's assume so. So then you don't need to have any people as witnesses. You have the recording. You put the hidden camera there, or you have all these cameras that are all over the place. Now you walk down the street, you're being recorded. And that's how they actually see all sorts of things. That's how they solve many crimes, or that's how they see what really happened in certain accidents, all sorts of things. There's cameras all over the place. You don't need people to testify. That's one type, where the witnesses or the testimony is simply to reveal to us the truth of what really transpired. Then you have, in Torah law, you need the witnesses because their witnessing the act is what actually makes it go into effect. And that would be the argument for Gittin and Kiddushin, for example. Divorce and marriage. It's not just that we need two witnesses to really be sure that this man divorced his wife properly. It's because the witnesses actually witnessed it that the divorce went into effect. And the same thing applies with Kiddushin. It's not just that you need at least two proper witnesses to have witnessed that he put the ring on her finger for the sake of marriage. It's the two witnesses that actually make it go into effect. So therefore, if we were to need something which needs two witnesses to make it and to affect it, well then, the goyim that are basically, like everyone else, able to lie, so then we can't use them. However, if it's a case where I merely need to know the truth, and in this case, there's no reason to doubt that they're saying the truth, so then we accept it. Again, so it's not as witnesses that we're accepting it, we're simply accepting it as revealing to us what the truth really is. Even if we don't know it with all of the nuances that the Torah said. And since we are in fact relying on them when it comes to this, so then it's as if we are able to testify. It became as if we, the trustworthy, highest form of the Jew, are witnesses. Because we need to know what happened. These people are telling us what happened, and there's no reason to doubt that in this case, they're absolutely saying the truth. Therefore, now it's been shifted that we are the witnesses. So it comes out that when in that case we judge whatever we're judging, whatever the court is doing, it's based on our testimony, or rather I should say on our knowledge, not on their testimony. So how we got to our knowledge, it's through the fact that they said so. But don't call them witnesses. They are the ones that are informing us of the truth. Bottom line is, as we said in the opening three words, Ein Edus L'Goy. All of these opinions agree with the bottom line, basically, and that is that a guy can't be a proper witness to testify. The question is, why though? So we have three opinions. And again, what would be the difference is if you know someone to have proven that he's an exception, and he's not, like your Stam Goy, who's not trustworthy. Well, then it depends on why the guy is disqualified. If he's disqualified, like the first opinion, because it says Ish, or it says your fellow brother, well, then he's disqualified. I don't care who he is. Just like, as we said, Moses and Aaron. But if it's a biblical disqualification, or like the third opinion, if it's, if it's the second opinion, if it's rabbinic, well, then it depends. The rabbis said why they're disqualifying him. So if it doesn't apply, then they would accept it. And the same thing with the third opinion, even though it's biblical, but it's because he is a Rasha or a Gazlan. Okay, well then if he's not, so then it would be accepted. Second paragraph on Shin Lamed Ches, 338. Yisrael shetoyein tanas safek li Yisrael acher. Alpi eid goy. Okay, we have a concept that depending on the case, if you have the two litigants, so sometimes one can make a claim that is enough to obligate the other litigant to have to take an oath. And when it comes to claims made, we have a concept of tainas bari, which means his claim is an absolute one. And the guy says, I know for a fact. Now the problem is the other guy says the other thing. I know for a fact that you owe me $100. And the other guy says, I know for a fact that I don't. But then you have a case where someone says, I don't know. I am in doubt. So someone says, I know you owe me $100. And the other guy says, I don't know. Because I say I don't know, do I have to pay? Because you say for sure, I don't know. I can't say I don't. But I surely don't want to say that I do. So that would be called tainas safek, a doubt. Okay, so now, a Jew that claims tainas safek, he has a claim of a doubt, li Yisrael acher, to another Jew. He says, I think, I'm not sure, but maybe you owe me money. Why does he think so? Al pi eid goy, based on the testimony of the non-Jew. Ein ze nechsheves l'tainas bari. That is not considered a claim of for sure, of an absolute one. L'chayves hanis v'shvos heses, to be able to obligate the other person to have to take a certain type of a vow, of an oath. Because again, as we quoted the verse, they lie. So this guy that you're making your claim based on is not even enough of a testimony to obligate the other litigant to take an oath. And therefore the assumption is that he's lying. And some say, no, you do make him swear. So it's actually a dispute in Jewish law. What would you do if the Jew makes a claim, has a guy as his witness? Is that enough, at least, to make the other person who's denying it have to swear? Af bin izakim, even when it comes to damages, ein edus ella bivnei vris. Again, you only have testimony when you're dealing with Jews. V'loi b'goyim, not with goyim. Af al pi, even though shel haroiv, that in most cases ein edin izakin ella goyim v'kayetze bohem shebimamodam ha'kois. Most cases of where there was, let's say, a brawl or some type of a fight, wherever that may be, whether it's in a bar or on a street corner or in an alley or at some sports event, in most cases the people there are the goyim. So what do you expect to have as witnesses? Those are the people that are there. Nope. Even in such cases, it has to be a Jew who's going to testify for the Jew. And you can't say, I have lots of witnesses. If they're not Jewish, they're not accepted. Now we have the concept, this is the classical case, the way it's in the Torah and the Chumash, in the book of Shemos, Exodus, in Parshas Mishpatim, about one ox that damages another ox. Okay, so there it's primarily talking about between one Jew and another Jew. How about if the ox of a goy gored the ox of a Jew? And the only witnesses are goyim. But they're coming to testify in the Jewish court that that goy's ox gored that Jew's ox. We wouldn't accept it. Because they are goyim that are testifying. Okay, now, the next thing is going to be speaking about, we're still on the same subject, the next paragraph. with regards to religious religious facts, or how to establish something based on the testimony of a goy, something which is permitted or forbidden for a Jew, not civil. Af be'isur v'heter, even in a case of isur v'heter, which is a term for things which are forbidden and permitted from a religious standpoint, for between man and God. Ein soimchim al dvarav shel goy. We do not rely on the words of the non-Jew, loy le'isur v'loy le'heter, in both ways, not to prohibit it in a strict way and not to permit it in a lenient way. We don't accept what the goy says. And the words of the goy do not affect us in one way or the other. They don't bring anything up and they don't take anything down. It's as if he said nothing, totally irrelevant. And grab hold of the following rule in your hand. Remember this rule. That forever. Salek divrei edusoi shel goy. Remove the words of the testimony of the goy, ki'ilu einam b'shel achirim, as if they do not exist. Remove the testimony of the goy. It's a non-entity. He's not here, he never said it. Le'iser, for a prohibition, what would that mean? What would that mean, that we don't make something forbidden even though the goy said something? Going, for example, goy shayotzei veyach, a goy that was screaming, voimer, and saying, chulachem peiroisai shel or lahem, take my fruit for yourselves. These are my fruit. Go ahead, take it. They're arla. They are from the first 3 years where a Jew is not allowed to eat them. Go ahead, take it. Shel neta revoihem, or they're the 4th year where you basically also can't eat it, unless you bring it up to Yerushalayim or redeem it. Ein eman, he's not believed. Because it's simply as if he's praising his item that he is giving away or selling. Even if his intention is not for his own benefit. And the rabbis did not say that he means to improve his product. It's only because he said it when they're still his before he sold them. We don't say let's believe him with a migoy. A migoy is a term that the Gemara uses. Literally it means since, or out of the fact that. So we don't say, look, if the guy wanted to lie, he could have said a better lie. Shemaya roitze, because if he wanted, he didn't have to sell them at all. He could have burnt them. Or the rabbis can say that he wanted to praise his item. We don't say we should believe him because he is ruining it for himself when he says that they are arla. And some say that no, it only applies if he's trying to praise his product. Only then do we not believe him. So the point is, if you have a market and you have a guy who is selling his produce and he's making an announcement and he's saying it's arla. Arla means it's forbidden for a Jew to eat. No problem. We buy it and we eat it. We don't believe you. You're a liar. It's his product, and he's telling us it's not kosher. I don't believe you. You're not going to harm me. You're irrelevant. If the halacha is that without you saying anything, I'm allowed to assume that these fruits are not arla, let's assume that the halacha is as follows. I mean, how do I walk into any produce store and buy fruit? Maybe it is Arla. Who knows? Isn't there enough of a doubt? Maybe it's Arla. It may be from the first 3 years. So let's say the halacha is that, well, most fruit in the market are not Arlas, therefore it's okay. If that's the halacha, that most fruit in the market are not Arla, and therefore all fruit is kosher, outside of Eretz Yisrael or whatever, without the other issues, well then, the owner of the farm who's selling it, the guy who just delivered it from his own farm, he's not believed to say, this is Arla. No. So he can't harm. Ula hatir, and how does it work the other way around? That he cannot permit it, he cannot help, be lenient. Okay, go in for example. Basar shnis alem min ha'ayin. We have a very important rule that the Talmud speaks about, and this is the halacha in the code of law. Meat that disappeared from the eye. A Jew did not see it. The meat was not under supervision of the Jew. She'asr, that becomes forbidden for the Jew to eat. Ve'en hagoy neman lahatiroi. And the goy is not believed to make it permissible. The goy cannot come and say, oh no, the meat was not switched, I guarantee it. No, he's not believed. You can't have a goy as the mashgiach, that's the bottom line. In other words, there's a truckload of meat delivered, and there's no signs. In other words, again, this gets very detailed again, how it applies. But let's say it's considered a case which is called basar shnis alem min ha'ayin. It's meat which a Jew did not see, and there's no wrappings, no signs, nothing, and you don't know what the story is. And the non-Jew who delivered it says, I'm telling you, I had the key with me the whole time. There's no way anyone could have gone into the truck and switched it. And I promise, and it's irrelevant. If the halacha is that that's called basar shnis alem min ha'ayin, the testimony and the promise of the goy is irrelevant. He can't help us. So in the previous case, the previous example, he couldn't harm, and now he can't help. V'chein, and likewise, the goy is not believed to testify that a woman's husband died in order to allow her to be free and marry someone else. See, in order for a woman, a Jewish woman who's married, to be able to marry someone else, only one of two things can allow her to marry someone. Either her husband gave her a proper get, or her husband died. So what happens if her husband disappeared? Well, if she doesn't know the whereabouts of her husband and she's stuck, there's a term for that, and she's called aguna. Aguna means basically a woman that is stuck. She's, for all practical purposes, not married, but she's not free to marry anyone else. So, what happens if it's a time of war or whatever, and her husband disappeared, and we don't know? And now it's insufficient. If he's in a coma, she's still married to him, and she's really stuck because he's alive, and he cannot give her a get. So then she's really stuck. If a guy comes and says, I saw him dead, I buried him, he is dead, he's not believed to free her. His testimony is not testimony, not accepted. But in that case, it's only if his intention is to actually testify that he's not believed. But if he's coming, and like we said before, if he's just telling us a story, and he says, okay, listen, now, right before your husband died, here's what happened. And it's all just part of the story, but he's not trying to establish the fact that her husband's dead. Like, for instance, let's say, for some reason, he thinks that everybody knows that the husband is dead. So he's taking that as a matter of fact, and he's telling us some story, and he's testifying to something else. And there's a dispute between the sages in the Talmud. Some say, it's only if his intention was to allow her to marry someone else, to free her up, that then he's not believed. Kegoin, for example, Shibala Vestin, that this guy came to the Jewish court, V'amar, and he said, Ish ploini meis hasiu es ishtoi. He clearly says that. He says, so-and-so died, let her get married. That's part of his statement. He came into the base and he says, so-and-so died, so now she's free to get married. Then we don't accept his testimony. But if his intention was merely to testify, it's to testify. He's not just telling us a story, but just to testify to the death of the man. Kegoin, for example, Shamar Stam, Meisish Ploini. He just said, so-and-so died. And we don't see any particular intentions. Neman. So one opinion in the Talmud is that he actually is believed then. And meaning to say, based on that, she now can marry someone. The Yeshayimrim, but some say, Shafilu Niskavin Lohoid Bilvad Ein Neman, that even if he's simply meant to testify, with no other agenda, not for her sake to get married, he just meant to testify, but because he came to testify, Ein Neman is not believed. Halacha Kedei Acharena, and the halacha is like the last opinion, meaning that we do not accept his testimony, even if it's simply to testify that the husband is dead. He's not believed unless he didn't even mean to testify. He's just telling us a story. For example, he is Mesiach Lefi Tumoi, which is the term that we're using, that he's just simply speaking and telling us a story. And from his story, we realize, hey, the man's dead. Whatever the case may be. He says, let's say he's trying to pride himself. And he says, I killed so-and-so. And I don't know, or whatever. Or whatever the case is, as long as he's not coming with the intention of testifying, but he's just telling it to us in a story or in a by-the-way fashion, and from that we can clearly understand that the man is dead because of his words, then he's believed, according to everybody. So if it would be, let's say a doctor or something came from overseas and he says, I'm telling you that this such and such happened, if he's coming to testify, then it's not acceptable, but if he's just telling it to us, then it's acceptable. All right, let's do one more paragraph. This is the last line on Shin Lametes 339. Goy shehevi peiros lemechira, a guy that brought produce for sale. Ve'amar, and he said, Mishal ploini lekachtim, I bought them from so and so. Mishali hevesim, I brought them from my own. Nechleku tanoim. So now there's a dispute between the Mishnaic sages. Rabbi Oimer, Rabbi says, Nemon lahachmir. He is trusted, he's believed to be strict. Rabban Shimon ben Gamliel Oimer einu nemon. And Rabban Shimon ben Gamliel says he is not believed. Now, Yesh Mefarshim, so that's the Mishnah. So there are now some commentators explain Shnechleku, that this dispute, they're arguing when a guy is speaking, just by the way fashion, is he trusted even to make it strict for us? V'yesh mefarshim, and some explain shemachlokaisam badavar shu sheloi, that the dispute over here between Rebbe and Rabban Shimon ben Gamliel is something which belongs to the guy. Im neman lahachmir, can he be strict as he believed when his intention is not to glorify his product? V'yesh mefarshim, and yet there's a third opinion, that their argument is when the guy does not want to sell it. Then in that case, Rebbe holds that he is trusted to be strict. And as far as what the halacha is, which one of these opinions we follow. It's a dispute in as far as what is the ruling. Some rule like Rebbe, and others yet rule like Reb Shimon Gamliel. I think next time we'll go back to this paragraph because we are running out of time, and we are still in the middle of the section in Goy about testimonies and when the Goy is trusted. But just to remind everyone of, again, one rule which we're mentioning over here, and that is that generally speaking, if a Goy is meisiach lefi tumoy, which means he is innocently relating something, and from that we can deduce, but he's not coming to testify with the intention of a testimony, then we will believe him. Until next time, everybody be well and keep all the Sheva Mitzvahs B'nai Noach, believe and serve and worship Hashem, and bring Mashiach now.